The transport ship broke through the atmosphere of Arcturus Prime, and Maya Brooks pressed her face against the small window. Below her, the massive training facility stretched across the moon's surface like a metal city. She had seen pictures, but nothing prepared her for the actual size of it. This was where the Galaxy Coalition trained its warriors, and somehow, Earth had earned a place here. Maya pulled back from the window and checked her uniform one more time. The dark blue fabric was still crisp, and the United Defense Force patch on her shoulder looked almost too new. She was 28 years old, and she had spent half her life fighting in the ruins of old Chicago. Now she was about to train alongside aliens who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. The other humans in the transport looked nervous. Danny Price sat across from her, his leg bouncing with anxiety. Kate Sullivan kept checking her gear bag. Ben Carter stared at nothing, his jaw tight. Lisa Monroe was the only one who seemed calm, but Maya knew her well enough to see the tension in her shoulders. They were all soldiers, all veterans of Earth's brutal wars, but this was different. This was the galaxy judging humanity. The transport landed with a soft thud. The door opened and heat rushed in from outside. Maya stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked down the ramp. The landing platform was enormous, bigger than any military base she had ever seen on Earth, and it was crowded with aliens. Maya had seen aliens before, but only in videos and photos. Seeing them in person was overwhelming. Tall creatures with forearms and red scales stood in formation, insect-like beings with gleaming shells clustered together. Floating orbs of light contained in crystal suits drifted past. Giant rock-like figures that had to be 3 meters tall waited near the facility entrance. There were dozens of different species, maybe hundreds, all moving with purpose across the platform. A voice boomed across the landing area, and Maya turned. A translator device in her ear converted the alien words into English. New arrivals form up for orientation. The humans gathered together instinctively. Maya counted them quickly. 20 humans total, the first group Earth had ever sent. Around them, hundreds of alien recruits were forming lines. The humans looked tiny in comparison to most of the other species. They followed the crowd into a massive hall. The ceiling was so high that Maya couldn't see the top clearly. Thousands of recruits filled the space, organized by species. The humans were directed to a spot near the back. Maya noticed some of the aliens staring at them. She couldn't read alien expressions, but the attention felt hostile. A figure moved to the front of the hall. He was huge, easily 2.5 meters tall, with 4 powerful arms and scales that gleamed like rubies. His eyes were yellow and cold as they scanned the crowd. When he spoke, his voice carried authority that needed no translation. I am Instructor Vexanar of the Krell Warrior Caste. For the next cycle, I will teach you what it means to fight for the Coalition. He paused, and his gaze swept over the assembled recruits. Most of you will fail. Some of you should not be here at all. His eyes locked onto the human section. Maya felt her stomach tighten. Humans, Vexanar said, and the word sounded like an insult. Your species joined the Coalition 3 standard years ago. You have no combat tradition worth mentioning. Your technology is primitive. Your bodies are weak, yet here you stand taking up space meant for true warriors. Danny shifted beside Maya, his fists clenched. Kate's jaw was tight. Maya kept her face neutral, but inside anger was building. She had seen friends die in Chicago's ruins. She had led missions against enemy forces that outnumbered her team 10-1. She had survived when survival seemed impossible, and this alien was calling her weak. Vexanar descended from the platform and walked directly toward the human group. The crowd parted for him. He stopped in front of them, towering over even the tallest human. His forearms crossed over his chest as he studied them with obvious contempt. You, he said, pointing at Maya with one clawed finger. Step forward. Maya hesitated for only a second, then moved out of the line. She was one of the smaller humans in the group, barely 165 centimeters tall. Standing in front of Vexanar, she felt like a child. What is your name, human? Vexanar asked. Lieutenant Maya Brooks, United Defense Force, she replied. Her voice was steady despite the thousands of eyes watching her. Lieutenant? Vexanar repeated, and there was amusement in his tone. In the Coalition, we earn our ranks through combat prowess. Tell me, Lieutenant Brooks, how many real battles have you fought? Maya met his yellow eyes. Depends on how you define real battles, sir. A ripple of whispers went through the crowd. No one spoke to instructors that way. Vexanar leaned down, bringing his face closer to Maya's. I define real battles as combat against a worthy opponent. Have you ever faced a warrior who could kill you in seconds? Have you ever fought someone faster, stronger, and better trained than yourself? Every day of my life, Maya said quietly. Vexnar straightened up. For a moment, something flickered in his expression, but it was gone too quickly for Maya to identify. He turned to address the crowd again. In the Coalition, we have traditions. One of them is the challenge of worth. Any instructor may test a recruit to determine if they belong here. He looked back at Maya. I challenge you, Lieutenant Brooks. A simple test of your combat ability. The hall went completely silent. Maya could feel Danny and the others watching her. She knew this was a setup, a way to humiliate humans in front of the entire facility. But she also knew she couldn't refuse. What are the terms? She asked. Vexnar's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. Simple. You will have 3 seconds to kill me. Use any method you choose. If you succeed, you pass. If you fail, you and your entire species will be marked as unworthy. 3 seconds. It was absurd. Vexnar was a trained warrior with 4 arms, natural armor, and probably 100 years of combat experience. He was giving her 3 seconds because he knew it was impossible. Maya felt the weight of humanity's reputation settling on her shoulders. Every human in the galaxy would be judged by what happened next. She could refuse, but that would be seen as cowardice. She could accept and fail, which would confirm Vexnar's contempt, or she could do what she did best. She could survive by being smarter and faster than her opponent expected. Maya looked up at Vexnar. When she spoke, her voice was clear and calm. 1 second is enough. The hall erupted in noise. Aliens of every species began talking at once. Some laughed. Others seemed shocked. Vexnar himself froze, all 4 arms going still. His yellow eyes widened slightly, and for the first time since Maya had seen him, he looked genuinely surprised. What did you say? He asked slowly. 1 second is enough, Maya repeated. You're giving me 3 seconds to kill you. I only need 1, Vexnar stared at her. The noise in the hall faded as everyone waited for his response. Maya could see calculations happening behind his eyes. He had expected fear or maybe defiance. He hadn't expected confidence. Finally, Vexnar nodded. Then we go to the arena. Now. Everyone will watch as I teach this human the price of arrogance. He turned and walked toward a side door. Maya followed, aware of thousands of eyes on her back. The other humans started to follow, but guards blocked their path. Only the recruits who had been called were allowed into the combat arena. As Maya walked through the door, she heard Danny call out behind her. Maya, be careful. She didn't look back. Her mind was already working through the problem. 1 second to kill a Krell instructor. It was impossible by conventional thinking. But Maya had spent her entire life doing impossible things. The door closed behind her, and she found herself in a corridor that led down into the facility. Vexnar walked ahead, his 4 arms swinging with each step. Maya studied his movement, his posture, looking for any weakness. 1 second. She could do this. She had to do this. The corridor opened into the arena, and Maya stepped into the light, ready to show the galaxy what humans could do. The arena was bigger than Maya expected. It stretched out like a football stadium, with seating rising in tiers all around a central combat floor. The floor itself was dark metal, smooth and unmarked. Above it, holographic displays flickered with information in languages Maya couldn't read. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars beyond Arcturus Prime's thin atmosphere. Vexnar strode to the center of the arena floor and turned to face her. His 4 arms spread wide in a gesture that seemed to say this was his domain. Maya walked forward slowly, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. She kept her hands relaxed at her sides, her breathing steady. Around them, the arena was filling with spectators. Word had spread fast. Aliens of every species poured into the seating areas, and the noise of their voices created a rumbling sound that filled the space. Maya saw the insect creatures, the floating lights, the rock giants, and dozens of species she didn't recognize. Near the entrance, she spotted Danny and the other humans being allowed in. They looked terrified. A massive holographic display appeared above the arena, showing Maya and Vexnar from multiple angles. Text scrolled across it in what Maya assumed were different alien languages. She caught sight of her own face on the screen, and she looked smaller and more fragile than she felt. An official approached, a thin creature with purple skin and too many joints in its arms. It carried a case which it opened to reveal 2 devices that looked like thick bracelets. The translator in Maya's ear spoke. These are neural disruptors. They simulate death without causing actual harm. When struck by the energy from these devices, your nervous system will register fatal damage and shut down temporarily. You will recover within minutes, but for the purpose of this challenge, you will be considered dead. The official attached one device to Vexnar's wrist and approached Maya with the second. She held out her arm and the device clamped around her wrist. It was heavier than it looked and felt warm against her skin. The challenge will begin when the countdown reaches 0, the official continued. Instructor Vexnar will remain stationary for 3 seconds. Lieutenant Brooks may attack during this time using any method available to her. If she succeeds in delivering a fatal strike, she wins. If she fails, Instructor Vexnar is permitted to demonstrate proper combat technique. The official's tone suggested it thought the demonstration would be brutal. It probably would be, Maya thought. Vexnar didn't seem like the type to show mercy. The official left the arena floor. The noise from the crowd grew louder. Maya could feel the weight of their attention, the skepticism, the eagerness to see a human fail. She blocked it out and focused on Vexnar. He stood 15 meters away, his forearms now hanging loosely at his sides. His yellow eyes watched her with confidence bordering on arrogance. He had done this before, Maya realized. He had challenged recruits and defeated them, proving his superiority. This was entertainment for him. Maya's right hand drifted to her left forearm, a casual gesture that looked like nervousness. Her fingers touched the small activation stud hidden in her sleeve. Every human soldier in the Defense Force wore a concealed weapon system. It was standard issue, a holdover from Earth's paranoid military culture. Most species in the coalition fought openly, with honor and declared weapons. Humans fought to win. The neural disruptor in Maya's sleeve was smaller than the bracelets they wore for the arena. It was designed for covert operations, for situations where a soldier needed to eliminate a threat silently. Maya had used hers 3 times in Chicago, all 3 times to save her life or the lives of her team. The key was knowing where to aim. The Krell had thick scales that covered most of their body, natural armor that had evolved over millions of years. But Maya had spent the last 3 weeks studying every file the Defense Force had on Coalition species. She knew Krell anatomy better than Vexnar probably realized. A holographic timer appeared above the arena. It showed 3 seconds in glowing numbers that every species could understand. The crowd fell silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Maya bent her knees slightly, shifting her weight. She didn't draw any visible weapon. She didn't fall into a fighting stance. She simply pointed 2 fingers at Vexnar's chest, her arm extended like she was indicating a direction. Vexnar's eyes narrowed. He didn't understand what she was doing. That was good. The timer began counting down. 3, 2, 1. Maya fired. The neural disruptor in her sleeve released a focused pulse of energy. It was invisible to most species, just a distortion in the air that lasted less than a fraction of a second. The pulse crossed the 15 meters between Maya and Vexnar almost instantly. Vexnar's body jerked. His yellow eyes went wide with shock. His forearms spasmed and his legs buckled. He collapsed to the arena floor with a crash that echoed through the silent space. The holographic display showed the elapsed time. 0.73 seconds. For a moment, nothing happened. The crowd seemed frozen. Maya lowered her arm and waited. The official rushed forward with scanning equipment, checking Vexnar's body. The readings appeared on the holographic display above them. Fatal neural disruption confirmed, the official announced. Strike location, primary nerve cluster, upper thorax. Death simulation achieved in 0.73 seconds. Lieutenant Brooks wins the challenge. The arena exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some seemed angry, others excited. The human section erupted in cheers. Maya saw Danny jumping up and down, his fist in the air. On the arena floor, Vexnar's body twitched as the neural disruptor's effects began to wear off. His eyes opened and he stared up at the transparent ceiling. Maya walked over to him and looked down. "Are you okay?" she asked. Vexnar's translator made a sound that might have been a laugh or a groan. "How?" he managed to say. "Krell anatomy," Maya said. "You have thick scales covering most of your body, but there's a gap where your chest plates meet, right above your primary heart. The nerve cluster there controls your voluntary muscle system. Hit it with enough neural feedback and your whole body shuts down." Vexnar pushed himself up with 2 of his arms. The other 2 hung limp, still recovering. "You studied our physiology." "I study everything," Maya said. She offered him her hand. After a moment's hesitation, Vexnar took it with one of his functioning arms. She helped him stand, though he still outweighed her by probably 100 kilograms. "The weapon," Vexnar said. "I didn't see you draw anything." Maya showed him her forearm. "Concealed system. Standard issue for human soldiers. We've been fighting each other for a long time. We learned to always have a backup weapon. More officials were entering the arena now along with security forces. A particularly large Krell with silver scales instead of red approached them. The crowd fell silent again as this new figure walked across the arena floor. Even Vexnar straightened up, his recovering arms moving to a respectful position. "That's Commander Zorath," Vexnar said quietly. "Head of this facility." Commander Zorath stopped in front of Maya and studied her with eyes that were darker than Vexnar's, almost black. When he spoke, his voice was deeper and calmer. "You are Lieutenant Maya Brooks of Earth." "Yes, sir," Maya replied. "You defeated Instructor Vexnar in less than 1 second, using a concealed weapon to strike a vulnerability that most Coalition species are not aware exists." "Yes, sir." "This was not an honorable victory," Zorath said. "You used deception. You struck without warning. You exploited knowledge that your opponent did not expect you to possess." Maya felt her stomach sink. She had won the challenge, but maybe winning the wrong way was worse than losing. "However," Zorath continued, "warfare is not about honor. It is about survival. You demonstrated tactical awareness, preparation, and efficiency. These are valuable traits." He turned to address the crowd. "Let this be a lesson to all recruits. The enemy will not fight fairly. The enemy will use every advantage. If you wish to survive, you must do the same." He looked back at Maya. "You will continue your training, but there will be an inquiry into your methods. The Council will want to understand how humans approach combat." He paused. "I suspect they will not like what they learn." Zorath walked away, his silver scales glinting under the arena lights. The other officials followed him. Maya was left standing with Vexnar, who was now fully recovered and watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "You humiliated me," Vexnar said finally. "You challenged me," Maya replied. I responded. "I challenged you expecting to teach you respect. Instead, you taught me something." Vexnar's forearms crossed over his chest. "Humans are dangerous, not because you are strong or fast, but because you think differently. You see vulnerabilities where we see strength. You use deception where we use honor. We do what we have to do to survive," Maya said. "Yes," Vexnar agreed. "I see that now. Come. Your fellow humans are waiting for you. And tomorrow, the real training begins." Maya walked toward the arena exit where Danny and the others were waiting. Behind her, she could hear the crowd still arguing about what they had witnessed. Some were calling for her disqualification. Others were demanding to know more about human combat techniques. Danny grabbed her in a tight hug when she reached them. "That was incredible. Did you see his face? He didn't know what hit him." The inquiry chamber was designed to intimidate. Maya sat alone in a chair at the center of a circular room, while representatives from 12 different species watched from elevated platforms around her. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing footage of her arena victory from multiple angles. The recording played on a loop, showing the moment Vexnar collapsed over and over again. Commander Zorath sat on the highest platform, his silver scales making him easy to spot even among the crowd of officials. To his right was a Chitauri representative, its insect body covered in what looked like ceremonial markings. To his left, a Luminari floated in its crystal containment suit, pulsing with different colors that Maya assumed meant something in their communication system. "Lieutenant Brooks," Zorath began, "you have been called to explain your actions in the arena. The Council wishes to understand your methodology." Maya stood up even though no one had asked her to. Sitting while being interrogated felt wrong. "What would you like to know, sir?" A Drokar shifted its massive stone body, and rocks grinding together created the sound that became words through Maya's translator. "How did you know about the Krell nerve cluster vulnerability?" "Research," Maya said simply. "Before we left Earth, we were given access to Coalition biological databases. I studied the anatomy of every major species. For what purpose?" The Chitauri clicked. "Recruits studied to learn. You studied to find weaknesses." Maya met the insect's multifaceted eyes. "On Earth, we have a saying, know your enemy, but we also say know your allies. I wanted to understand the species I would be training alongside." Understanding and exploitation are different concepts. The luminary pulsed, its colors shifting to what might have been disapproval. You used your knowledge to strike in a manner calculated to cause maximum effect with minimum warning. Yes, Maya admitted. That's how humans fight. The chamber fell silent. Maya could feel the weight of their judgment. She knew what they were thinking. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, possibly a threat to the coalition's carefully maintained order. Zorhath leaned forward. Explain your species' approach to combat, Lieutenant. Help us understand. Maya took a breath. This was important. How she explained humanity would affect every human who came after her. Most coalition species have been part of the galaxy for thousands of years. You have rules, traditions, honor codes. You fight with awareness that the galaxy is watching and judging. She paused, organizing her thoughts. Humans don't have that luxury. We've only been on our own planet fighting ourselves for our entire history. We didn't have rules that everyone agreed on. We had survival. And the humans who survived were the ones who learned to use every advantage, every trick, every weakness in their enemy. This sounds like a species built on deception, the Chitauri said. No, Maya replied. It's a species built on adaptability. When you're outmatched, you don't fight head-on. You find another way. You use terrain, psychology, technology, anything that gives you an edge. One of the other representatives, a species Maya didn't recognize, spoke up. Is this how your people fought their wars? Without honor? Maya felt anger flash through her. We fought our wars trying to survive, trying to protect people we loved, trying to stop threats that wanted to destroy everything we had. You call it without honor. We call it necessary. Zorath raised one of his hands and the chamber quieted. Tell us about your background, Lieutenant Brooks. How did you become a soldier? Maya hadn't expected personal questions. She hesitated, then decided honesty was the only option. I grew up in old Chicago during the resource wars. My parents died when I was 11. I joined a resistance group because it was the only way to eat and have a place to sleep. She could see some of the representatives shifting uncomfortably. By the time I was 16, I was leading scout teams. We fought against occupation forces that had better weapons, better training, and more soldiers. We survived by being smarter, by hitting fast and disappearing, by knowing the city better than they did. Child soldiers, the Luminari pulsed. Your species uses children in warfare. Our species does whatever it takes to survive, Maya said sharply. I didn't have a choice. None of us did. We fought or we died. Zorath studied her for a long moment. And now you are here representing Earth to the galaxy. What do you think that says about your species? Maya thought about the question carefully. It says we don't give up. It says we learn fast. It says that when you give us a chance, we'll do whatever it takes to prove we belong. Another representative spoke, this one from a species with blue skin and multiple eyes. The concern, Lieutenant Brooks, is not whether humans belong. The concern is whether humans will disrupt the coalition's military structure. Your methods are unsettling. Why? Maya asked. Because they work? Because they are ruthless, the Chitauri said. You struck Instructor Vexnar without mercy, without giving him opportunity to defend himself. He gave me 3 seconds, Maya pointed out. That was the challenge. I accepted his terms and won within those terms. You exceeded his expectations by exploiting his assumptions, Zorath said. It wasn't quite a criticism, but it wasn't approval either. This is a pattern we have observed in human behavior. You allow your opponents to underestimate you, then use that underestimation against them. Maya shrugged. If people want to think we're weak, that's their problem. We know what we're capable of. The holographic displays changed, now showing different footage. Maya recognized it immediately. It was combat footage from Earth's wars, battles in cities, in jungles, and deserts. Humans using guerrilla tactics, ambushes, psychological warfare. It was brutal and efficient and nothing like the orderly battles the Coalition seemed to prefer. We have reviewed your species' military history, Zorhath said. It is extensive and violent. You have fought continuously for over 400 years. Your weapons development has focused on efficiency and lethality, rather than honor or limitation. We fought each other because we didn't know there was anyone else to fight, Maya said. Now we know. Now we can focus that energy outward, toward threats to the Coalition. Or toward the Coalition itself, the Drokar rumbled. Maya felt a chill. Earth joined the Coalition peacefully. We want to be part of the galaxy. We want to contribute. Your contribution concerns us, the Chitauri said. Your methods, your ruthlessness, your willingness to ignore traditional combat ethics. These things could corrupt our military traditions. Or they could save your lives, Maya said. She knew she was being bold, maybe too bold. But she was tired of defending humanity's survival instincts. With respect, the Coalition has been at peace for 200 years. You have honor and tradition because you haven't needed to fight for your survival. But what happens when you face an enemy that doesn't care about your rules? Theoretical, the luminary pulsed. Is it? Maya challenged. The galaxy is big. You've explored maybe a fraction of it. You really think there's nothing out there that might threaten the Coalition? Nothing that might require more than traditional tactics? The chamber was silent. Maya realized she might have gone too far, but she couldn't take it back now. Zorath stood up and all eyes turned to him. Lieutenant Brooks raises a valid point. The Coalition has enjoyed peace, but peace is not permanent. We must be prepared for threats we have not yet encountered. He looked around at the other representatives. I propose we continue the human training program, but with modifications. The humans will train alongside other species, but they will also be permitted to demonstrate their tactical approaches. We will observe and evaluate whether human methods have merit. This is dangerous, the Chitauri protested. Teaching other species to fight without honor is teaching them to survive. Zorath interrupted. Honor is valuable. Survival is essential. We must understand the difference. The representatives argued among themselves for several minutes. Maya stood in the center of the chamber, waiting. Finally, Zorath raised his hand again for silence. The decision is made. Lieutenant Brooks, you and your fellow humans will continue training. However, you will be closely monitored. Any violation of Coalition law will result in immediate expulsion of all humans from this facility. Understood, sir, Maya said. You are dismissed, Zorath said. Report to Instructor Vexnar tomorrow morning. He has requested to continue as your primary instructor. Maya blinked in surprise. He requested that? He did, Zorath confirmed. It seems you made an impression. Go, Lieutenant, and try not to start any more diplomatic incidents. Maya left the inquiry chamber and found Danny, Kate, Ben, and Lisa waiting in the corridor outside. They had been barred from the inquiry itself but had refused to leave the area. Well? Danny asked immediately. What happened? We're staying, Maya said. They're going to let us continue training. That's great, Kate said, but you look worried. Maya was worried. She had spent the last hour being questioned by some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and she had defended humanity's way of warfare. But defending it and being proud of it were different things. She had grown up in a war zone. She had done things she wasn't proud of, things that still haunted her dreams. Now she was being asked to teach those methods to aliens who had never known that kind of desperation. Was that good? Was it necessary? Vexnar was waiting for them when Maya and the other humans arrived at the training grounds the next morning. He stood in the center of a large outdoor area, his forearms crossed, watching as they approached. The early morning light of Arcturus Prime's sun made his red scales look like they were glowing. You are late, he said when they stopped in front of him. Danny checked his wrist display. We're 2 minutes early, sir. Then you are late by 2 minutes, Vexnar replied. When I say morning, I mean before the sun rises. Not after. Kate started to protest, but Maya shot her a look that said not now. They were already on thin ice after the inquiry. No point making things worse. Understood, sir, Maya said. It won't happen again. Vexnar studied them for a moment, then nodded. Good. Today we begin real training. Not the performance of yesterday. Not the politics of the inquiry. Real preparation for real combat. He gestured to the training ground around them. It was massive, with different sections for different types of practice. Maya could see obstacle courses, shooting ranges, areas marked for hand-to-hand combat, and simulation pods that looked like they could create virtual environments. The Coalition trains warriors to fight with honor and skill, Vexnar continued. We emphasize individual combat prowess, tactical awareness, and adherence to the rules of engagement. Most species train this way because most species value life and seek to minimize casualties. He paused, his yellow eyes sweeping across the human group. But I have spent the night studying your species' military history, and I have learned that humans do not train this way. Ben shifted uncomfortably.
Sir, we do value life.
Humans value survival. Vexnar interrupted. This is not criticism. This is observation. When faced with superior forces, humans do not surrender. You adapt. When faced with impossible odds, humans do not retreat. You find advantages. When faced with enemies who follow rules, humans change the rules. He walked closer to them. Yesterday, Lieutenant Brooks defeated me not because she was stronger or faster. She defeated me because she understood something fundamental about warfare. The enemy's expectations are a weakness. The enemy's assumptions are a target. Vexnar stopped in front of Maya. You will teach me how humans think about combat, and I will teach you how the Coalition fights. Together we will see if there is value in combining both approaches. Maya felt surprise. She had expected punishment or increased scrutiny, not genuine interest. You want to learn from us? I want to understand you, Vexnar corrected. The Coalition has fought the same way for centuries because it worked. But the galaxy is vast and there are threats we have not encountered. If humans have survived by thinking differently, then that knowledge has value. Over the next weeks, training became intense. Vexnar pushed the humans hard, teaching them Coalition combat techniques. They learned proper weapon handling for energy rifles and plasma sidearms. They practiced hand-to-hand combat against species with different anatomies and strengths. They studied tactics that had been refined over thousands of years of galactic warfare. But Vexnar also did something unusual. He asked the humans to teach. Maya found herself explaining urban warfare tactics to a room full of alien recruits who had never seen a city like old Chicago. She described fighting in 3 dimensions, using buildings and underground tunnels, creating ambush points and escape routes. Most of the aliens looked confused. They were used to open battlefields and clear lines of engagement. Danny taught demolition and explosive tactics, emphasizing the psychological impact of destroying key infrastructure. It's not about killing enemies, he explained to a skeptical Drokar. It's about making the enemy afraid to move, afraid to advance. When they don't know what's safe, they become cautious. Cautious enemies make mistakes. Kate demonstrated long-range targeting, but her methods shocked the other species. She didn't aim for center mass like Coalition training emphasized. She aimed for command personnel, communication equipment, and anything that would disrupt enemy coordination. Cut off the head and the body dies, she said. Several aliens protested that targeting commanders was dishonorable. Kate shrugged. Then your commanders will die first. Ben taught close-quarters combat with a brutality that made some aliens refuse to participate. He didn't fight to disable or capture. He fought to kill as quickly as possible. In close combat, hesitation kills you, he told them. You have 1 chance, maybe 2 seconds. Make it count. Lisa's lessons on electronic warfare were perhaps the most controversial. She demonstrated how to hack enemy communication systems, spread false information, and create confusion in enemy ranks. The Luminary representative complained that such tactics were fundamentally dishonest. Lisa replied, war isn't honest. War is survival. Not all the training went smoothly. There were conflicts almost daily. A Chitauri recruit refused to train with humans, calling them deceivers without honor. Ben nearly got into a physical fight with a Drokar who said humans were teaching cowardice. Kate had to be pulled away from an argument with several aliens who insisted that sniping commanders was murder, not warfare. But slowly, something interesting began to happen. Some of the alien recruits started to understand. They began asking questions. How would you handle this situation? What would humans do if faced with this scenario? The questions came reluctantly at first, almost ashamed, but they came. Vexnar watched everything. He attended every human training session. He took notes. He asked his own questions. Maya noticed he was changing too. He started thinking about problems differently, considering approaches that violated traditional Krell combat doctrine. One evening, Maya found Vexnar alone in one of the strategy rooms, studying holographic displays of historical battles. The battles weren't from Coalition history. They were from Earth, Vietnam, Stalingrad, Afghanistan, guerrilla wars where smaller forces had defeated larger, better-equipped enemies. Fascinating, Vexnar said when he noticed her. This battle. The smaller force had no chance of conventional victory, yet they won by making the cost of occupation too high for the larger force to sustain. Maya looked at the display. That's asymmetric warfare. When you can't win directly, you win by making your enemy give up. It is dishonorable, Vexnar said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Yet it is effective. Honor doesn't matter if you're dead, Maya said quietly. Vexnar turned to face her. Is that what you believe? That honor has no value? Maya thought about it. I believe honor is a luxury, something you can afford when you're strong enough to choose how you fight. Most humans never had that luxury. We fought to survive and we used whatever worked. And now that you are part of the coalition? Vexinar asked. Now that you are no longer alone, will you continue to fight without honor? We'll fight however we need to fight, Maya replied. But if we can afford honor, we'll try. We're not monsters. We're just survivors. Vexinar nodded slowly. I am beginning to understand the difference. 3 months into training, Commander Zorath called a wargame exercise. It would be the first major test of how well different species could work together. The recruits were divided into 2 forces. One force would defend a simulated colony. The other would attack it. The weapons were all training variants that registered hits without causing injury. Maya's group, including the human recruits and a mix of alien species who had shown interest in human tactics, was assigned to the attacking force. They were outnumbered. The defending force had better positions, better equipment, and more time to prepare. In other words, exactly the kind of scenario humans excelled at. The war game lasted 6 hours. Maya's force didn't attack head-on like the defenders expected. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, creating diversions and confusion. Danny's team sabotaged the defenders' communication system with targeted strikes. Kate eliminated key defensive positions from extreme range. Ben led infiltration teams through areas the defenders assumed were too difficult to traverse. Lisa hacked into the simulation's control system and fed false information to the defenders. The defenders, trained in traditional coalition tactics, struggled to adapt. They kept expecting a conventional assault that never came. By the time they realized what was happening, Maya's force had infiltrated the colony center and achieved their objective. The final score was overwhelming. Maya's outnumbered attack force had defeated the defenders while suffering minimal casualties. When the results were announced, the command staff looked stunned. This wasn't how war games were supposed to go. Commander Zorath studied the tactical breakdown for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Lieutenant Brooks, explain your strategy. Maya stood before the assembled command staff and recruit audience. We couldn't win a conventional fight. We were outnumbered and outgunned. So we didn't fight conventionally. We made the defenders fight our battle on our terms in ways they weren't prepared for. You cheated, one of the defending forces commanders said. You hacked the simulation system. We exploited a vulnerability, Lisa corrected. In real combat, enemies use every advantage. The simulation system is part of the battlefield. This is not how the coalition fights, another commander protested. Maybe it should be, Vexinar said, surprising everyone. He stood up, his forearms gesturing to the tactical displays. I have studied human warfare. The alarm woke Maya at 3 a.m. It wasn't the normal wake-up call. This was the emergency alert, the one they had trained to respond to but never expected to actually hear. She was out of bed and dressed in her combat gear before the alarm finished its first cycle. In the corridor, chaos ruled. Recruits from every species ran in different directions, some toward their stations, others seemingly with no destination in mind. Maya found Danny, Kate, Ben, and Lisa already assembled near their quarters. What's happening? Kate asked. I don't know, but it's not a drill, Maya replied. The emergency lighting cast everything in red, and the facility's automated systems were broadcasting evacuation instructions in multiple languages. Vexinar appeared, moving fast despite his size. Human team, with me. Now. They followed him to the command center, a massive room filled with holographic displays and communication stations. Commander Zorath stood in the center, his silver scales reflecting the light from dozens of screens. Around him, senior staff members from various species were receiving reports and issuing orders. When Zorath saw them, he gestured them closer. We have a situation. 7 hours ago, Coalition border stations detected unidentified ships entering our territory. 3 hours ago, those ships attacked the Valdris colony. Communications were cut off 45 minutes ago. A holographic display showed the last images from Valdris colony. Maya felt her stomach tighten. The ships attacking the colony were unlike anything she had seen before. They moved in coordinated swarms, thousands of smaller craft supported by larger vessels that looked organic rather than mechanical. What are we dealing with? Maya asked. We don't know, Zorath admitted. The Coalition has never encountered this species before, but they are hostile. and they are advancing toward more populated systems. The Council is mobilizing the defense fleet. What do you need from us? Vexnar asked. All training is suspended, Zorath said. All recruits are being activated for emergency service. You will be assigned to the warship Starfire. It departs in 2 hours. The next 2 hours were a blur of preparation. The human team gathered their equipment, checked their weapons, and tried to process what was happening. All around them, the training facility transformed into a military staging ground. Recruits who had been practicing combat were now preparing for real combat. The Starfire was enormous, easily a kilometer long and bristling with weapons. Maya had seen coalition ships before but never been aboard one preparing for battle. The corridors hummed with energy and crew members moved with urgent purpose. Everything felt different from the training facility. This was real. Their assigned quarters were small but functional. The team barely had time to store their gear before they were called to a briefing room. Inside they found Vexnar and several other officers from various species. One of them was a Krell with silver scales marked by battle scars. When everyone was assembled, he began speaking. I am Fleet Commander Korvan. The Starfire is one of 20 vessels responding to the border incursion. Intelligence has identified the enemy as the Vortan Swarm, a hostile collective from beyond Coalition space. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They attack, consume resources, and move on. Holographic images showed Vortan ships in more detail. The organic appearance wasn't just aesthetic. The ships were actually grown, not built. They moved like living things, adapting their formations in response to threats. Initial engagements have not gone well, Korvan continued, and Maya could hear the frustration in his voice. Coalition tactics emphasize precision strikes and minimal casualties. The Vortan attack in overwhelming numbers, accepting massive losses to achieve their objectives. Our forces are not adapted to this type of warfare. He looked directly at the human team. Commander Zorath has recommended that we consider alternative tactical approaches. Human approaches. You have experience fighting enemies that outnumber you and care nothing for casualties. That is what we face now. The briefing continued for another hour, detailing Vortan capabilities and coalition defensive positions. By the end, Maya understood the situation clearly. The coalition was losing. Traditional tactics weren't working against an enemy that didn't value its own survival. After the briefing, Vexnar pulled the human team aside. Korvan is desperate. The first 3 encounters with the Vortan resulted in significant coalition losses. He needs new ideas. We'll need time to study their tactics, Maya said, and we'll need authority to implement strategies that might violate coalition combat protocols. You will have both, Vexnar confirmed. Korvan has authorized you to develop a battle plan. Whatever you need, you will get. The team spent the next 8 hours in a strategy room, reviewing every bit of information about the Vortan. They studied attack patterns, ship movements, and the remains recovered from destroyed Vortan vessels. Slowly, a picture emerged. They're coordinated, Lisa said, pointing at swarm movement patterns. See how they respond to threats? There's some kind of central command directing them. Hive mind? Ben suggested maybe, Kate said. Or maybe they just have really good communication. Either way, if we can disrupt the coordination, we can create confusion. Danny was looking at tactical data from previous battles. Coalition ships are designed for precision engagement. They take careful shots, target specific systems, minimize collateral damage. The Vortan just overwhelmed them with numbers. Maya studied the holographic display, thinking, we need to change the equation. Make it so numbers don't matter as much. How? Kate asked. We go after their command structure, Maya said. Every military force has leadership, even swarms. Find the command ships, destroy them, and see what happens to the coordination. That would require penetrating deep into Vortan formation, Vexnar said. He had been listening quietly. It would be incredibly dangerous. Yes, Maya agreed. But if it works, it could turn the tide. They presented their plan to Commander Korvan 6 hours before the Starfire reached the combat zone. The plan was simple in concept but complex in execution. While the main coalition fleet engaged the Vortan in conventional combat, a small strike force would infiltrate the Vortan formation and target their command vessels. The infiltration team would use smaller, faster ships that could blend into the chaos of battle. They would identify command ships by their position and communication signatures, then destroy them with focused strikes. Once the Vortan coordination broke down, the main fleet could exploit the confusion. Corvin listened to the entire presentation without interruption. When Maya finished, he was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. This plan violates several coalition combat protocols. It requires accepting high casualties among the strike force. It targets command personnel, which some species consider dishonorable. And it relies on creating chaos rather than maintaining order. Yes, sir, Maya said. It's how humans fight when we're losing. We are losing, Corvin said quietly. He looked at the tactical displays showing Vortan advance. Very well. Your plan is approved. Select your strike team and prepare for deployment. The team spent the next few hours in frantic preparation. They would lead the strike force personally, along with volunteers from other species who had trained in human tactics. In total, they had 12 small attack craft, each carrying a crew of 4. As they approached the combat zone, Maya stood on the Starfire's observation deck and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, Vortan ships were advancing, destroying coalition colonies. She thought about Earth, about the wars she had fought, about the people she had lost. She had hoped leaving Earth would mean leaving that violence behind. Instead, she was bringing it to the galaxy. Danny stood next to her. You okay? No, Maya said honestly. I'm terrified. And I'm angry, and I'm tired of fighting. Then why are you doing this? Because if I don't, more people die, Maya replied. That's always been the reason. The battle began 6 hours later. The coalition fleet met the Vortan swarm at the edge of the Threshold system, where a massive orbital station housed 3 million civilians. The Vortan had already destroyed the station's defensive platforms and were beginning their assault on the station itself. Maya watched from her strike craft as the main fleet engaged. Energy weapons lit up space and ships from both sides exploded in silent flashes. The Vortan numbers were overwhelming. For every Vortan ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The coalition fleet was fighting bravely, but they were being pushed back. Strike force, begin your approach. Corvin's voice came through the comm system. Godspeed! Maya guided her craft into the chaos of battle, with the rest of the strike force following. They moved fast, weaving between larger ships using debris for cover. The Vortan ignored them initially, focused on the bigger threats. That was good. That's what Maya had counted on. Lisa's sensors identified potential command ships based on their communication patterns. They were deeper in the Vortan formation, larger vessels surrounded by protective swarms. Getting to them would require running a gauntlet of enemy fire. All craft stay close, Maya transmitted. Watch each other's backs. We don't leave anyone behind. The strike force dove deeper into the Vortan formation. Energy blasts filled the space around them. One of the attack craft took a hit and exploded. Then another. They had lost 2 crews before they even